Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Today we're going to be flying the real-world MiG-29 circuit to land with an overhead brake. Now, this was given to me by an ex-Slovak MiG-29 pilot who used to fly the MiG-29AS, a Slovakian version of the MiG-29 that was equipped with instruments in imperial units, in other words, feet and nautical miles. But today we're going to be using the GDR MiG-29 here, landing at Damgarten on the East Germany map, and we're going to be converting everything into metric. So for ease of reference, I have all these units in both metric and imperial, so you can adapt to your own mission, whatever you feel like makes most sense for you. Today we're going to be using metric, and here's how it works. So first of all, we obviously decide which side of the runway we're going to be approaching from, whether it's the east or the west in our case, and we have the beginning of our circuit here denoted by these arbitrary points, Juliet and November. Now you can call them whatever you like, it doesn't really matter, but the most important thing is that this is your base leg where you effectively start your approach into the airfield, and ideally these points should be based on some sort of visual reference marks. Now in our case it's not ideal because we're here in the middle of a forest, but then our final turn is actually just to the north of this village, which makes it a lot easier to pick out visually. We need to maintain at least 1,100 meters on our base leg here, and it's a 5-kilometer leg. So you can create the exact same circuit with absolutely any airbase you like. And we just need to maintain 1,100 meters minimum. And then when we make the final turn, that's another 5-kilometer leg to the beginning or the approach end of the runway. And at that point, we can descend from 1,100 meters down to a circuit height of, in our case, 600 meters or 2,000 feet if you're flying in Imperial. Now, we're going to be maintaining at least 550 kilometers an hour here as we begin the brake, or you can maintain 300 knots minimum, and these are minimum speeds, so you can go faster. And the brake itself is actually going to start happening just after we pass the landing threshold of the runway. So this image here I've created entirely just for reference sake, so you don't have to go all the way to the end of the runway before you start your brake, unless of course you're doing multiple brakes with multiple wingmen in your formation. But if it's just you on your own, as soon as you pass the threshold, you're going to make a left brake in our case, and of course you can adapt this to make it a right-hand circuit instead of a left-hand circuit, but in our case it's going to be a left-hand circuit. So our brake is going to be at 60 bank angle of 60 degrees maximum, and then we're going to roll out in the reciprocal heading, of course, and then after that we're going to come in and slow down. At this point, the circuit doesn't actually mention exactly what the pilot actions are, so this is a sort of a very simplified diagram that I was given in terms of how to fly it, but it is fairly obvious that the aircraft is going to get configured then at that point after completing its initial turn onto the downwind leg, and from that point you just use normal MiG-29 procedures where you can drop the gear below 500 and then get the flaps extended sort of around the 450 to 400 kilometer an hour mark. Then you can maintain your altitude up until a point where you are roughly 45 degrees away from your landing threshold behind you, so that's going to be approximately 7.5 o'clock, and after that you can start your base leg turn with a 40-degree angle of bank maximum, and at that point simply judge your height to roll out with no less than 106 meters before the landing threshold, or in case of Imperial units 350 feet. So that's it. It's very simple. You can adapt the exact same speeds that you normally use to fly on final approach in the MiG-29, which is around about 330 to 320 and then down to 310 with around 280 kilometers an hour for the touchdown speed. From that point onwards, it all becomes very standard. But this is the circuit, so let's hop into the jet and give it a go. Okay, here we are. We're maintaining 1,200 meters. Now remember, from Juliet Point out to the final point on the base leg is no less than 1,100 meters. We'll slow down to 550 if we can here as well. And we're just approaching the Juliet Point, which is just off slightly to the left-hand side here of our nose in that forest. Make sure we don't descend below 1,100, so maintain 1,100. And we'll slow it down to 550 if we can, trim it out. And there's Damgarten, our 11 o'clock. We'll start making that left turn towards the village now, and hopefully that'll work out nicely for our base leg. Just drop in on the VSI slightly. Now remember, the VSI is got a bit of a delayed response to your inputs as well. so you can't necessarily use it as a... Here we go, here's the village, 1,100, so just to the north of the village, and we should be on our base leg now. Make sure we don't descend below 1,100. There's our 550, we got it, 550, try and maintain that 1,100. 540, just increase the speed slightly. Here comes Dumgarten on the right hand side. Just to the north side of this village, we said, is our waypoint, so we'll start bringing it back now in towards our final approach course of 079. 550 is looking good, descending down to 600 now. Just to slightly on the dead side of the circuit. It's going to be a left-hand brake. Here comes 550 kilometers an hour. Try and maintain that. Here is 600. Right, we just sailed past 600 slightly, but just get the 600 back if we can, especially if we go from water to over land, where you are going to get a slight increase, an extra 20 meters or so. So here comes 600, here comes 550. Try and maintain the 550 if we can, and do the brake. So no more than 60, just overcooked it very slightly for that initial part of the turn. And we'll try and maintain that altitude there of 600. Speed is coming back. Gear, flaps, less than... Yep, Ekran is shouting, that's fine. Landing lights going on. We're looking good. Slight descent, just stop that. And we'll just keep that circuit coming around to reciprocal of 259. Just climb a tiny bit. Here comes the 259, and here we go. Okay, rolled out nicely on our reciprocal heading. We're almost at 600, just 20 meters low. That's okay, we'll fix that, and we'll get the speed down to 350 initially. Now remember, the circuit for the Slovakian MiG-29 doesn't specify exactly where you need to do this or what you need to do at this point, other than obviously you have to configure. But what speed you fly, I mean, up to this point, we just use our standard MiG-29 procedures. So we'll slow it down to 320 to 330 as we roll out in final approach. All right, here we go. So we're starting our final approach, and no more than 40 degrees, which is right about there. So we're looking at those bars for the bank angle in the HUD. That's about 30, that's about 40, and then a little bit more than that is 45 before we get to the 60. So rolling out no more than 106 meters before the runway. As we roll out here, we'll just trim it out, slowing it down to 330. That's good. We'll try and maintain 320 to 330 here as well. And no more than 40 degrees, which should work out pretty nicely. Probably going to overshoot slightly, but it's easy to fix a very slight overshoot. So you just keep it going. Don't necessarily have to tighten up the bank angle all that much. And here we go. We've rolled out, like I said, more than 106 meters on the threshold, or to landing course, should we say. So it's 320. Maintain the 320, and now we try and maintain our 3-degree glide. Around about 320 is good. So we pass over the threshold down to 300, and then we should be touching down to 80 to 90. Horrible weather to deal with here is making it a lot more difficult. Also, don't have any PAPI lights, makes it a lot more difficult, a lot more challenging. Okay, here we go. Just let it slow down now. And round out. Just touch down before the touchdown zone markers with a slight bounce. Keep a little bit of air braking going, and then drop the nose. Drag chutes coming out. Get a little bit of braking action going here as well. Flaps are coming up.
Смотри экран.
Смотри экран. Probably because the flaps are up. Nose wheel steering button. Now we can start taxiing in. Landing light is going into taxi. And we'll drop the chute here. And that's it, folks. I hope you've enjoyed this little circuit to land in the MiG-29. Like I say, it's very difficult to find information about exactly what procedures different air forces use, but I'm glad we at least have this Slovakian MiG-29 circuit, which you can fly in metric or in imperial, of course, if you so wish. Just in case, I'll leave the mission file for any Patreon supporters, although you can, of course, just simply replicate this at any airfield you like yourself in DCS world. And it works pretty well. It gives you a fair amount of room to maneuver, and like I said, you don't necessarily need to keep the circuit extremely tight. For practice sake, you can have a slightly wider version of it, and you can also delay your final turn onto your base leg as well. That's it, folks. Hopefully you've enjoyed it, and hopefully catch you in the next video. Adios.